listening to everybody speaking, I remember the first time that I met, excuse me, it was in 1979-80. I ran a conference called Voices of Resurgent Islam. And Ismail al-Faruqi was there, Hassan Turabi was there, Anwar Ibrahim was there, and many, many others. And AbdulHamid was late because of the plane, so he didn't get much sleep. And I never met him before. And what stood out in my mind was waiting and waiting and wondering if he made it. And then he walked off the elevator. And so there was this man who seemed very big, and his eyes were half closed. It just looked like he had just literally gotten out of bed and had to make it into the room. But to my astonishment, when it came time for him to talk, he turned on. And over the years, I had a certain kind of expectation in the early years because I had read his dissertation at the University of Pennsylvania. And given when he got it, and from that university, that was quite remarkable. And I'll even say more than that, with all due respect to some who before that and at that time would get degrees from first-rate universities from the Arab world. For a number of them, they would edit a text. So they would have somebody's text, they would translate it and edit it. But AbdulHamid did an original piece of work and a sophisticated piece of work that, in fact, people can still talk about and refer people to read it. In later years, where we met quite often, was in Malaysia when he was the rector of the university. My memories of him were always that he seemed always very calm and centered and very relaxed. And what he loved to do with us, we talk about whatever, Ismail al-Faruqi, we talk about what was going on in the Muslim world, but the two features every time you visited him were he had his collection of coffees and teas that he'd want you to pick and then make something for you. And the other was showing you the plans for the new university. And literally, when he first did it, I thought he was just pulling out plans that basically were handed to him by others. But it was very clear that he was intimately involved in developing that campus. And I think the final comment that I would make was my astonishment, quite frankly, that he continued in later years to think and write as much as he did and to move into a number of different areas in his writing. I guess I was amazed at it at that point because I wasn't quite the age I am now. People don't know my age, and if I did say it, they'd be amazed that I'm still functioning all that well. But I am functioning very well. I run 5 miles every morning to prove that. But what amazed me was the range of what he was involved in. I mean, a number of religious issues that he got into, and questions that he raised, some of which were necessary, it seems to me, for a real reformer, including raising some issues that at first I thought, boy, flat. And I always respected that because, of course, anybody who studied with Ismail al-Faruqi knew what it was to study with a scholar who was both very well known, but also could get a good deal of flack when he was doing it. And I would just end with a remembrance of Ismail, since people referred to him. And I have many, many memories of Faruqi. But the memory I had of this Ismail and was my doctoral dissertation when I did my defense. I finished my defense and I wanted to go home to see my parents. I was in Pennsylvania. I was going to go to Jersey that night and celebrate. Well, that wasn't going to happen. Ismail invited me to his home. And when Ismail invited you, you had no choice. It wasn't that he was nasty or anything, but you just could not say no. And of course, I kept sitting there and there was nothing to drink and nothing to eat. And I kept sitting there. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I've done it again. I've come here during the fast. I forgot that he'd be fasting all day, and I have another 2 or 3 hours till I have anything. And then, in typical Faruqi approach, he then said, and now, John, you and Jean, we're going to go to Bryn Mawr College to hear some piano concert. You know, the last thing I wanted to do, I still wanted to go home and see my parents. I never got home that night to see my parents because I knew I could not say no to my mentor. And then, yeah, the final memory, because I think it reflects also what the way AbdulHamid and way the founders of IIIT really saw their mission and how they would have described it. But it occurred in a very interesting situation. Faruqi and I, after I'd finished my degree, he invited me to the faculty club at Temple University. And I had an opportunity at that time. I was invited to do some consulting at the State Department. And I was talking to him about it. I said, well, I turned it down. And he said, why? I said, well, this was years ago. Now it's very common for academics to do consulting. I said, because I didn't want anybody to think that I was dealing too much with the government. And because most of the time when you're overseas, they immediately think that, you know, you might be CIA. Why is this non-Muslim 40 or 50 years ago, somebody who studied Islam, etc.? And he said, well, that's what you could do. And then in his voice, and many of you know his voice could be a booming voice, he said, oh, your other alternative is, and he went like this, you can roll up your sleeves and get on with the jihad. And so I just sort of looked at him and I said, Ismail, could you lower your voice just a little? Even back then, 40 years ago, if somebody who was a Muslim in a booming way talked about getting on with the jihad, the first interpretation would not be the interpretation that one would want. But I would just end then by saying that I think that AbdulHamid was a remarkable man, a remarkable scholar. I was honored to know him, and I was honored to know his daughter, Muna, for a number of years and to work with her. And thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you.